last season we were following the original Swedish-Danish series called The Brawn, it was called. And it was a great template, and it was something that everyone had seen, the network in the studio, so everyone had kind of bought into that idea. We were going to start on a bridge and end on a bridge, and it was basically my job not to mess it up. I'd use a worse word, but and we kind of like Meredith and I kind of steered it down the middle of the road. And we got to the bridge, and everything happened. And then we had 2 episodes at the end of the season where we had to create a new show. And one of the things that we spoke about was like this world that we had, this untapped world.
Yeah.
And I think that was the real sort of draw to the show, and what made the show different was this show set in between these 2 borders. And so then the storytelling, when you start thinking in those terms, is really big, and there's a lot of opportunities. And so we had to kind of, I don't say reboot, but you kind of had to reboot the show in many ways about what kind of stories you were going to tell. Because a serial killer is very singular. It has an engine in it that's very, why they work so well is they're very effective. This is a sort of, as you saw in this first episode, much more multi-layered, and kind of we're getting a lot of things going, and then we're going to sort of jerk the rug out from underneath you, and Franca's going to come visit you in the middle of the night and cut your ear off. But
never a good thing.
She visits a lot of people at night. Be very, coming up, so be very worried. But yeah, that was the challenge, and we had this huge, canvas to draw on, and it was like the problem I had this year was almost too much story. That really trying to narrow it down and tell a very compact story that has a beginning, middle, and end is kind of tricky in this area, because I think that story of the border is ongoing, and it was just this interesting thing to sort of dive into.
Well, the structure of season 1 was interesting. Like you mentioned, the 10 episodes sort of focused on that, and then the last 2 focused on sort of moving it forward. How did that idea come about of sort of resolving the serial killer issue early, and then sort of laying the groundwork?
It was scary because we literally, the great thing about serial killer story is that people are going to follow you, and then when you reveal the serial killer, I think it takes a little bit of air out of the balloon, and it's hard to keep that tension going. And I knew, at least, if we were going to survive into a 2nd and 3rd and hopefully 4th season, is that you had to kind of pull that life support system out of the show and say, okay, there's these really great characters, like them on their own terms, not because they're going to go put this monster behind bars. And I think that was the tricky maneuver we did last year, and thankfully FX sort of blessed that move. And I remember it was in a lot of the reviews, it was the first thing people mentioned, like all of a sudden the show did a 180 and made this turn. But at the time it was kind of scary, because I know there's a lot of discussion at the network about should we do it or not do it.